Lately, I've been doing a lot of soul searching when it comes to my Sony a6600. I purchased this back in May of 2020. I was in the market for a vlogging camera with excellent autofocus, and this ticked all the boxes. I had come from using a Canon G7X Mark 1 or 2, I think it was the first generation. I'm not gonna lie, it is a great camera. It does the job. It feels great in the hands, but there's one thing that continues to be the bee in my bonnet when it comes to this camera. And I feel like this is a common problem among other Sony users, and one of the main reasons why they switch from Sony to other brands, and that is color science. And because color science, color preference is so subjective, and the fact that you can always color correct in post, it feels like a lame cop-out when I say that color science is the reason that I'm having issues with Sony cameras. But at the end of the day, when it comes to editing my footage, I always have issues with it. I can't put my finger on it. There's no rhyme or reason. It's just something that's always irked me. And yeah, I had a come to Jesus moment over the weekend, and I'm just like, let's sit down, Kristin. Let's look at the Sony a6600 and figure out what we like and what we don't like about it. What's working and what's not working for Kristin. So let me count the ways. Don't get me wrong, there are so many things to love about this camera. I mean, look at it. The size is super tiny, compact. I absolutely love the grip on this thing. I mean, I have tiny lady hands.
Small hands.
It just fits perfectly in my grip. There are days when I just walk around the house holding this in my hands like this. Do any of you guys do that? I don't know, maybe it's just me. The other thing that I really like about this camera is that it has the flip up screen, so that ticks a box for my vlogging needs and self-portraiture needs. Battery life, this thing will not die. The Z battery is just, it's the Energizer Bunny, it just does not quit. The Sony a6600 just works. It does everything that I need it to do when it comes to vlogging, photography, but that said, capturing the image is just half the battle. So when it comes to editing, that's a whole nother ballgame. Compared to Canon and Fuji, my experience using those cameras, Sony, every time, I always spend more time than I anticipate editing the raw footage. And I don't think that should be the case. Again, color is so subjective. Lots of people love the color science of Sony and have no problem with it. Some people don't even notice it. And scrolling through Instagram and watching YouTube, I've seen so many beautiful images captured with Sony cameras. Maybe it's my style of editing, I don't know, but for me, the color science of this camera just doesn't work, and it just creates a whole world of frustration every time I edit a video, every time I edit a photo. And having since purchased ever since purchasing the Fujifilm X100V, my mind has been blown. It leaves me wishing that this camera had a flip out screen and interchangeable lenses. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love this camera for street photography. This is my new buddy. I take it with me wherever I go, even to the grocery store. This left me wishing that this camera could have a baby with this camera. After doing quite a bit of research, actually an intense amount of research, I'm a little concerned for myself, the amount of diving down this rabbit hole that I did. It seems to me that this unicorn of a camera does exist in the Fuji realm, and if my Fuji X100V and my Sony a66 were to have a baby, that baby seems to be the Fuji X-T4. And while the Fuji X-T4 seems like it would satisfy all those needs after having done said research, there's a part of me that really just doesn't want to let go of this camera. I'm really fond of it, especially the Sony a6600 with this lens pairing. I don't know if you've noticed the hulking lens mounted on this camera body, but this is in fact the Sony 16 to 55mm G f2.8 lens. It is so good. This is actually my favorite lens that I've ever owned. It just takes beautiful photos. It's so versatile. And because this is a crop sensor, the 16 to 55mm equates to a 24 to 70mm on a full frame, or what that would be on a full frame. So yeah, this is such a great lens. I cannot speak more highly of it. I think it really just comes down to me liking the idea of this camera, but at the end of the day, it's not getting me to where I want to go, if that makes any sense. So I did a thing. I sold my a6600 along with the lenses. I know. I don't know if you guys saw it coming. You probably did. Fujifilm, my friends. I've tasted the Kool-Aid and I want more. That is my news for this week. I've sold off my Sony. A part of me is crying on the inside, but you know, I know it's for the best, and I know I'm going to have a lot more fun and a lot more adventures with the Fujifilm. I really did want to make this relationship work. So over the weekend, I gave it one last hurrah. My husband and I got in the car, drove up to the Hudson Valley, and yeah, I got some snaps with it. It was freezing cold, by the way. We went to Peekskill. I don't know if you've ever been there or heard of it, but it was really beautiful. The river was somewhat frozen, so there's a lot of ice, there were a lot of seagulls. It was cold. But you know, I got some snaps with this camera, and I brought along my lens baby, so I had a little fun with that. And yeah, that's exactly what it was. It was fun. I got some nice, you know, weekend shots. But the ultimate test. Yes, there was one final ultimate test that kind of sealed the deal on the whole shebang. Shebang, is that even a word? I'm making stuff up now, guys. Anyway, I did do a little test just to see the color science comparison. Bear in mind, I've never done one of these before, but I did a portrait test shoot comparison between my Sony a66 and the Fuji X100V. I set them both to the same settings. I set both their focal lengths to 23 millimeters, ISO 200, although I think I could have bumped it up just a little bit, and 1/800th of a second for shutter speed. So I shot a couple of basic headshots against the fence of my backyard, and you know, I think they do the job. There's no amazing bokeh effect, but you know, just to get the idea of what is happening with both of these cameras and their color science in post-editing. When I edit my photos, I generally go with my intuition. I gravitate towards colors I like, what's working, what's not working. And I edited the Sony images first. And you know, I honestly did not do very much color correcting at all. I just exposed everything to what I thought was good. I did not play with color temperature or tint or anything. I left that alone, but I did find myself wanting to reduce the amount of yellow saturation in my images and bumping up the reds ever so slightly. And these are the images that I got. So after editing these, I thought these were good. You know, I wasn't disappointed with them, but you know, that's how they turned out. And then I edited the Fuji images, and I treated them the same exact way that I treated the Sony images, and for some reason they turned out a lot cooler, or my preference for editing them turned out a lot cooler than the Sony images. I don't know why that is. I did set out to edit them exactly the same, but after editing both Sony and Fuji images, I found that I spent more time editing the Sony images trying to get a color situation that worked for me. And in the end, the Sony images turned out much warmer than the Fuji images. And surprise, surprise, I like the Fuji images better. I don't know how scientific this little experiment was or how biased or unbiased it is, but I guess I should say that this is not to convince you to choose between Fuji or Sony. This experiment was done for my own personal reasons. My intent was not to convince myself that yes, I do actually need the Fuji X-T4, although that is the conclusion that I've come to. You know, again, I took my Sony through its paces again, tried to rekindle that love that I once had for it when I first got it, and it's not working. For me personally, it's not working. So I made the tough decision to sell off all my Sony gear. That's not to say that I won't ever go back to Sony. Who knows? You never know. But I don't consider myself loyal to any brand whatsoever. Although I am kind of warming up to Fuji. I'm just waiting to sell off one more lens, and then I'm going to pull the trigger and purchase the Fujifilm X-T4. I think what's gonna happen is that once I sell off everything for my Sony gear, I'm just gonna do an even swap where, you know, I get the Fuji X-T4 and their version of the 16 to 55 millimeter f2.8. It's pretty much the same lens, but for Fuji. I do wanna get a prime. That's still, again, decisions that I will make this week. Everything is still up in the air, but I'm pretty sure I will let you know, fill you in on all the details in the next episode. So that said, that'll do it for me this week. Thanks so much for hanging out with me and listening me to pretty much thinking out loud and justifying why I'm selling my Sony camera. Why am I doing this again? It feels weird, but you know, I know it's the right decision. So anyway, thank you so much again. If you enjoyed this episode, please feel free to like and subscribe down below. I put out a video for your viewing pleasure every week. And until the next video, bye!